But going back to childhood, they weren't ready that I got polio at the age of 3. My father did not know what to do, and my mother decided that whatever talent I have, they will encourage. Architecture has something that I try to make sense of it. Sebab dulu when you first embrace architecture as a student, it's lain, you keep on drawing kan, and then you take gambar and admire this and that. Now I see architecture differently in the intersection of disability and architecture. I started disability activism in 1998. Why 1998? My friend Kusama said, I think Naziaty, you should go into disability activism because enough of building conservation. I was into building conservation activism at that time.
Hello, selamat sejahtera. Selamat datang ke Kita Family Podcast. Hari ini kami merakamkan episod ke-41 Kita Family Podcast. Dan seperti biasa, Kita Family Podcast ini adalah satu forum di mana kami akan membincangkan perihal berkaitan dengan makna serta kepentingan hidup bermasyarakat, menghargai keunikan serta kepelbagaian sesama kita dan meraihkan masyarakat yang berbilang kau dan juga keupayaan. Kita menghargai hidup secara inklusif yang mengambil kira keperluan segenap lapisan masyarakat, terutama bagi mereka yang kurang atau berkelainan upaya. Hari ini saya amat terharu kerana for the first time we are having a guest on our show. Ooh, this is a huge achievement. And with me today in our makeshift studio is Nori on my right.
Hai, Assalamualaikum.
SK right at the end.
Apa khabar?
And our esteemed guest, Dr. Naziaty Mohd Yaacob.
Hello, Assalamualaikum.
We are doing this episode because ini adalah sempena Hari Orang Kurang Upaya Sedunia. Hari OKU Sedunia yang akan diraikan pada 3 hari bulan Disember 2024. Tema tahun ini adalah memperkasa kepimpinan OKU untuk masa depan yang inklusif dan mampan. So we are talking about PWD leaderships in this year's theme. This theme was brought up by the UN, and we thought we are so very honoured. So kami bertuah dan berbesar hati kerana disertai dengan satu insan yang saya juga rasa menjadi satu pendorong bagi kerja saya dalam bidang OKU kerana beliau telah banyak memimpin saya juga, dan insan yang sangat hebat iaitu pengasas ZaSve, Universal Design, dan juga merupakan bekas Profesor Madya di Fakulti Seni Bina Universiti Malaya, Dr. Naziaty, dan yang pada saya paling bagus, she's been a disability activist since 1998 dan juga telah mendapat training under UN ZaSve, iaitu United Nations Economic and Social Commission of Asia Pacific, and pada tahun ini beliau menggunakan pengetahuan daripada training UN ZaSve itu dan dalam aktivisme dalam memberikan fokus kepada property development ataupun pembangunan hartanah di negara ini dan menjadi advisor kepada corporation. Ini adalah satu CV yang sangat pada saya sangat brief because it's a longer list, but you don't want to hear me today. We want to hear from Dr. Naziaty, or Dr. N as I call her. And let's hear from her before we speak even more. Firstly, welcome, Dr. Naziaty. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much. I'm really honored to be here really with Kita family.
How do you feel being our first guest?
I love being the first, but that is a bit like a pressure.
Tak. Jangan rasa.
Okay,
tertekan.
no worries.
No.
You're among friends, right?
Yes.
Yes, I am among friends.
Yes.
You're among friends.
Yes.
So,
we make sure all the friends end up family.
family.
As family.
Inshallah.
Pointing to the sign.
Yes. Thank you so much. And can we take you back to your childhood, where you could tell us a little bit about Dr. Naziaty as a child, looking back, and how she got here today in your own words?
Thank you for letting me talk about my childhood. I feel like I'm in therapy. I don't have a childhood trauma because I think I was kind of well brought up with my mother and father. And my father is an educator, and I embrace his legacy to be an educator as well. I consider myself that. My mother she worked in the government like my father, but she liked to go and acquire and develop properties, and I'm taking care of her, 88 years old now. And it is easy because she has funds for her old age. So there's a lot of stuff that's going on that we could talk about later. But going back to childhood, they weren't ready that I got polio at the age of 3. My father did not know what to do, and my mother decided that whatever talent I have, they will, encourage. And somehow I was drawing her pregnant with my brother in her tummy. And then after that, I drew her with my brother came out, and I drew and I drew and I drew. So she's a cranny. And, they have a lot of papers that are like errors and stack of them.
Yes.
And she bring them back and give me pencil and whatever. And I keep on drawing. And then there was this program called Mari Melukis. Yeah, there's a program, and she submitted my artwork there, and wow, it sort of, I didn't feel anything. I was a kid.
Yeah.
Okay, that sort of thing. All I wanted to do is just run around and play, So,
She was so proud of you, though, if she
Yeah.
brought home all that draft paper for you to nurture your
Yeah,
talent
yeah.
and submit it.
yeah, it helped me to get into architecture school later.
Amazing.
Because I like to draw, and I can draw human beings, and then proportionately, and then so convent Green Lane Primary School was in Penang. Is my primary school, and then we went to the US in 1973 after my Standard 5. And then when we went to the US, my dad was doing a PhD, brought the whole family in San Diego. And then I received an offer to go to Tunku Kusha College. So I went back on China Airlines on my own at the age of 13. And
Wow.
yeah, I mean, the thing is they just let me do quite independent. They want me to be competitive, the children, not only me, all of us, and independent and not feel sorry for myself. So often, if I was like complaining, she would say, if I was complaining, they wouldn't layan so much to be sorry. And they would say like, she would say like, you're normal, you're not disabled. But that is interesting because from you think, oh, okay, what is this kind?
Yes.
Normal. Yeah. No, because the disabled person think that they're normal.
Yeah.
It's when there's no support that we call ourselves disabled. Because, when we have a lot of challenges, when we need the assistance, then we would use that term to get us somewhere. But the point is, when I was into Kukusha College, I felt sorry for myself. I came into Form 2 and I stayed during PE. And my PE teacher came in. Naziaty, what are you doing here? You have to be with the rest. They didn't allow me to feel sorry for myself. I joined every game, basketball, hockey. I was not using any crutches.
Okay.
I was just limping because my lower left limb was weak. But I just hold the hockey stick, just be a defender, go and hit somebody. No. I would just hit the ball, just get it out of the way. Or basketball, just be the defender. I just wanted to be involved. And and that was the great thing about TKC, that they didn't allow me. They didn't
Just sit
stop
on
me.
the sidelines. Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't. They say you cannot do. There was no you cannot do.
So they were inclusive.
They were, but of course there was squatting toilets.
Yeah.
I have my usual problems in convent also, to the extent that I peed in the classroom. I couldn't, because if you ask other activists who couldn't use the toilet, they have to tahan the whole day, because it's squatting toilets, even TKC squatting toilets.
But you were in boarding school and you survived.
Yeah, I went to boarding school. When I basuh baju lah, I have to do everything on my own. I was involved with, they have on Sunday, house cleaning. So I just joined lah. Kadang-kadang cuci toilet semua. Because they want to, you to be involved with all these things.
So, kalau you boleh tanya. So, at that time, kerusi roda tak guna sangat?
Kerusi roda was when I'm 30-something. 35 actually. I actually played tennis semua until I'm 29.
Okay.
When I got arthritis, so sakit. So I never thought about wheelchair tennis or all this other wheelchair because I'm not naturally kena pergi use wheelchair when I'm disabled. I was just limping about, and my legs were almost the same length and strength, but it's just limping. But my paralysis of the lower limb, I had a brace. But at the age of 35 was when I went to do my master's and I had to use tongkat. And then after that, I used crutches and wheelchair. That in my mid-30s.
So the mobility came sebab lepas tu ada penyakit lah in a sense kan kalau arthritis. So it was not actually the initial condition.
Initial condition was polio.
For physical, right? So it was something that occurred later in life. So it was like a different stage of navigating spaces and things.
We grew and Lhasa or whatever, and I used a lot of my right hip. It was diagnosed as osteoarthritis when I was in the I had to discover this later in life as well. And when it get more painful, then I had to use a wheelchair lah.
Yeah.
I had to go and do like all this balancing,
So
pacing.
What as you were speaking and as you were using the word inclusive, actually, what kept coming to me was the enabling. Right, your parents enable you.
Yeah.
The school environment enabled you. But at a point, the faster wear and tear, the imbalance of the movement, which cause physical, I suppose, earlier wear and tear. Then the enabling part comes with a physical wheelchair or a support. So there's that, as I try to relate it to Kita's family's discussion about accommodation or neurodiversity. So it's a equipping. Kan? So your journey from the child, your parents being enablers, right? That's not the physical part, but that is the social, emotional, motivational. Very powerful learning, even as I hear you. Very, very encouraging.
How would you attribute apakah these skills that you picked up in TKC which led you to your leadership position?
Yes, because when I was in Convent Green Lane, I was voted the quietest girl in class.
Oh wow.
I was takut lah nak berkawan dengan orang lain. Even when I was in San Diego, in junior high and elementary, I was, quiet and just listen to my music and I was
Shy?
not really shy, I suppose. But then when I went to TKC helped because they have a lot of programs. I joined drama or I don't know, be a DJ or do the props. Something because TKC they have like packed until prep at night. Yeah.
It's a full day.
It's a full day. They have timetable. Pukul 5:30 pagi mandi ke. Air sejuk.
So it wasn't the academic challenge. What we always value in schooling is more complete. The extracurricular sounds like was activity, keeping you engaged, or not just you, all the students.
TKC is it's like a world on its own. Actually, they keep you inside this space, and then they give all these activities, and you have this little world, and that helped me to. When I came out, I went to University Technology Malaysia at that time Jalan Geni or Jalan Semarak now, doing my diploma in architecture, which my mother loved. That I got it, but my first two choices were nuclear physics and chemistry. But I wasn't supposed to be a scientist. I was supposed to be straddling between arts and humanities and science with architecture. And the drawings helped, when I was interviewed. I didn't have good grades in maths, only credits in science. But I guess we end up being social scientists when we take architecture later on. And maybe that is the clue to our exploration of ourselves with regard to social model of disability.
And how did you end up in the UK then?
UK, I was lucky at the time. There was Mara had a loan and I got that, and it turned into a scholarship later when I had good grades, and I did my degree, I did my postgraduate diploma, part 2, and then I wanted to continue with masters, but they said go back lah. At that time, recession. Then I decided. At first, I wanted to go into practice, but somehow it didn't gel. And then I went into teaching at UTM Skudai for 3 years. Yeah, and then after that, I did my masters, and I continued teaching again at University Malaya until I have compulsory retirement at the age of 60.
What was the impact of being able to go and study in the UK? Adakah seperti yang TKC telah memang membawa kesan kepada Dr. Naziaty dari segi membuka peluang dunia dari segi activity and things like that, in a sense you blossom then probably, right? Yes. From a shy person, maybe
from the quietest girl.
Yeah, from the quietest girl dekat Convent Green Lane in Penang, tiba-tiba dah sampai TKC. It was like the girl that did everything. And then we can kind of start to see Dr. Naziaty come into being, and then what happened in the UK that, how did that contribute to your life today? Kalau bab UK ni.
Yeah, it's interesting, the UK, for a couple of years, because it's kind of lonely and I had to learn how to cook. Kalau tidak, I don't eat. And then there is limited funds, kan? So, I learned how to use a can of tuna a lot. Yes. Because I need to go and take 2 buses to get a halal chicken.
So it's like tuna is fine. Tuna is fine. Yeah.
But I learned to do the roti canai. Roti canai sendiri. Alright. Ada this nice recipe book. I don't know, Betty You ke cookery book yang zaman dulu tu. Good recipe.
Siapa belikan? Siapa belikan recipe book tu? Oh, you dapat cari sendiri?
Iyalah daripada
bawa dari sini lah.
Bawa kat UK lah. I was in a self-catering hall dekat Leicester at that time. On my own. After that, the next year, my friend came and it was less lonely. I always pergi London. So I end up in London for 4 years after that. I even work for my part. After my part 1, I work a year and then 2 years postgraduate diploma in North London. And then another year I worked.
And how was it getting around with your condition in the UK? Boleh?
I think that I don't have as much arthritis then in my 20s. This is my 23 until 29, kind of 6 years. I take the tube, I take the buses. I learn to pace myself by reading books. I think it's more of the loneliness thing, when you're over there. But I kind of made friends as well. It wasn't easy, cultural shock. Juga, when you I tried to discover my religious part of me as well. And it's another barrier tau, masa dekat UK is cultural punya ni. Sebab you need to crit with the lecturers in the pub, and you have to go to the pub and they will. I said no, and I have to drink orange juice again and again. So that was it, and I was into a lot
perseverance,
of resilience. But at the end of the day, we kind of like, the thing is, you're free from Malaysia, right? Where all the terkongkong juga lah kita punya culture kan. It's quite, you could be more bebas if you want, if you're in the UK. But then I had to go back to Malaysia. I couldn't explore that really. I was kind of straight-laced and got my degree and thought about my parents when I got my degree.
Okay.
So was it the independence, having to fend for yourself, live your life, that helped shape who you were, that experience in the UK? What part of that?
Yeah, I worked there. I learned about how to be in the profession, the architecture profession. It was the batu loncatan, so to speak, of understanding about architecture and working in the architecture company that happened to be near the Architecture School Association, with a lot of lectures and conversations on architecture. So I was just lapping up all this. I was kind of hyper-focused, on a specific thing.
We want to talk about that hyper-focus a little bit.
That only I discovered later on this year.
Okay.
But I realized that architecture is a good cause for those in the ADHD and autism spectrum.
And why is that?
Because you cannot be hyper-focused. That's the design.
And that's the clue.
That's the clue.
Why I could excel in architecture.
Dok, cuba cerita sikit kenapa tiba-tiba dah sebut pasal autism
dengan ADHD
ni.
Daripada orang yang physically disabled.
Yes.
Yeah. Disability is an evolving concept. Okay.
Yes, teruskan.
So anyway, this year, I went to 2 therapists and they both diagnosed me. At first, the first one is autism, but the second one thinks that it's more ADHD and overlapping. There's ADHD and autism spectrum. And at the age of 62 now, I was thinking, oh my God, only I realized that. But everything else made sense, kind of like I mentioned, with regard to architecture. Until now, I bought architecture. And I even do a podcast that is globally, they have global listeners in architecture, talk architecture. And I do it like on my own. It's not like this setup, which is much more professional, And architecture has something that I try to make sense of it. Sebab dulu, when you first embrace architecture as a student, it's lain, you keep on drawing kan. And then you take gambar and admire this and that. Now I see architecture differently in the intersection of disability and architecture.
And tell us a bit more about that and why you chose a topic for your thesis. And the thesis was accessibility. Of the disabled to historical buildings.
Yeah. I couldn't get the other topic because my supervisor was doing his PhD in aesthetics in architecture, but it made sense because I was interested in building conservation. I had a background of staying in Penang, and when I came back from the UK, I kept going back to Penang, and with my students and so on, and it was actually the historic or heritage buildings that was interesting to me. And also, I took up measured drawing when I was in UTM teaching teaching the students, and we went all around cari traditional Malay houses in different states, Perak, Negeri Sembilan, Johor, and we got the students to go and measure them, and Pahang as well. So I myself had to do that. So the love of historic buildings and our heritage was inside of me. So it was natural to do that
as a topic.
the topic of that. But I also learned about development process or development control process that is to do with like planning, permission, and how I interviewed people doing that PhD. It was based on England and Wales. So I interviewed people who are access officers and local authorities, other officers, planning officers, conservation officers. I did a Delphi method where I tried to see the similarities and differences of opinion about how the first question is, the first question for that was, which is more important, conservation or accessibility? So that was my basic research question when I came in.
Okay.
And after that, there are all these objectives and whatever. So that's Delphi technique. And I interviewed access consultant and I did case studies. So it helped me to do qualitative research.
Wow. And did you find an answer? Yang mana lebih penting?
Yeah.
In England and Wales, conservation policies was more important. Kalau I nak cakap straightforward lah. This was done in 2002 to 2006. There was a Disability Discrimination Act coming in at that time. In local authority, only the access officer is in charge of accessibility, but the conservation officer and the planning, they have conservation officer. Unlike in Malaysia, not in local authority.
Okay.
So in every local authority, ada conservation officer.
Okay.
Tapi access officer could be not technical, could be just customer service.
Okay.
So, and then the planning officer. So I found out that actually all the officers need to actually understand accessibility, but they're not. And the penalty for you scratch a grade 1 listed building is £500,000.
Okay.
Wow.
So you have to conserve.
You are
Yeah. So you're super serious about conservation.
Consideration number 1 in the UK is heritage tourism.
Now you understand better.
Now we understand.
Buckingham Palace and stuff like that.
But Dr. Naziaty, it's just amazing. Again, I'm reflecting as you speak.
Yeah.
Your highly analytical ability, your
Okay, thank you.
all that. Because you were sharing earlier, Nori was like egging on, why the recent diagnosis of being on the spectrum or with,
okay.
But those positive traits you earlier mentioned, your parents and schooling nurturing talent, as opposed to seeing disability.
Yeah.
Right, was actually enabler. It becomes now the language of inclusion.
Yeah.
And looking at accessibility versus an old tradition, kan, is a tradition of conservation. It's mind-blowing.
So, how did that all come together and how did they
Yes.
reconcile with each other after that? Menarik ni.
Conservation and accessibility. Well, after my PhD, I think when you do a PhD, you also learn how to be a researcher,
Okay.
a proper researcher, citing properly the references and all that. And then you have to write articles, you have to publish. That's what academics do in universities. I did like a Think City grant on 12 or places in Penang to be to find out whether they're accessible or not. We did a rating system. A rating system is something that I still do now. I'm now into housing, transportation, and sports and recreation. But at one point, because heritage is not in Malaysia as important as in the UK, but I learned a lot of things from that in the UK. Yeah, I mean, so I don't know so much. I think I diversified and not really focused on that topic because when you do a PhD topic, you learn a lot of things. So you kind of like I had to go to be an administrator for a while, the head of department, and that didn't last that long. So that actually there's a lot of things that I have experienced which I think would point back to the being ADHD or autistic.
And can you just tell us a few, like adakah like maybe if you just take 4 things yang memang if you look back and say, oh, if only I knew, I would have dealt with this better.
Yeah.
Or not. You're making an assumption.
Oh yeah, I'm making an assumption. Sorry.
I don't know.
Well, apart from...
Do you think it was enabling to know now at 62?
It is good. The reason why I tried to find out is also due to failed relationships before. That was the reason. But it also made me realize about being hyper-focused, because that was the word that one of the therapists kept on saying. And when I was, because when I was a department head, it didn't last long because for 9 months, because I didn't get support from the staff and the boss. So I felt alone because the way I see things kind of black and white, right? And then like, this thing's not happening. So I had to make a complaint. People don't want you to complain. Again, so I see the truth needs to be known. And then like, and then when also, you don't see the politics so much, or the things that the games that's being played, you only, okay, this is my work. And I focus on the students. We're teachers, so we focus on students and then and do this program. I got a lot of grants. At one point in 2015, I got almost $500,000 ringgit worth of grants. 2 grants, UMRG and Grand Challenge. But but I chose the wrong program leaders. They were not really. I mean, I was not good at seeing the gray areas really, where people desires or wants are different than mine, I suppose. That's the best I can be talking about. So I had to negotiate that terrain or that environment, but students like our program, and I worked with one individual which was a very popular figure. And he was a part-time lecturer, but somehow, there is a dynamic that wasn't helping me at that time. I cannot say more. Because
on that note, I think we're going to take a short break.
Okay.
And when we come back, we're going to discuss bagaimanakah Dr. Naziaty yang menjadi akademik menjadi pemimpin.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah? We'll see you in a bit.
Okay.
Selamat kembali ke Kita Family Podcast episod ke-41. Ada bersama-sama kami Dr. Naziaty Mohd Yaacob, mantan Profesor Madya di bahagian seni bina Universiti Malaya dan sekarang menjadi satu freelance consultant. Dr. Naziaty telah memberitahu kami berkenaan dengan childhood dan education, dan sekarang kita nak mengupas sedikit lagi berkenaan Dr. Naziaty the leader. Dr. Naziaty yang menjadi pemimpin dan juga seseorang yang mempertahankan hak OKU di Malaysia. How did that happen, Dr. Naziaty?
Okay, I started disability activism in 1998. Why 1998? My friend Kusama said, I think Naziaty, you should go into disability activism because enough of building conservation. I was into building conservation activism at that time. Anyway, it also coincided with me going to a conference in Perth on transportation for elderly and disabled. And I didn't know a thing at that time. I just went for the conference. And then after that, I went to a United Nations ISCAP training in Penang. And it really opened my eyes. And the following year, a training in Bangkok, Thailand.
Ni semua still late 90s.
This is, 1998, the Penang one. 1999, the Campaign 99. If you recall, Asian Pacific Decade of Disabled Person. 99, Kuala Lumpur was a host.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
And then year 2000, we went for further training. So masa kita pergi for the training tu, there were 16 people from different places, countries, Vietnam, Sri Lanka, India, Indonesia, Malaysia. And we had training on social mobilization under the esteemed master trainer, Balakrishnan Venkatesh. Now the thing is that really impacted me because I never go to poverty-stricken area then do a case study on disabled person. I'm from the cushy middle class, lecturer sort of ni. I had to go to Pattaya to go to a rubber estate and a shack in the middle of the rubber estate where there is this 19-year-old guy who's an artist, but he was so bent. He can't really stand up. There's no muscles. And there is a television set right in the middle of the little shed with the dogs all around and, mud, the ground was like sand and all that. And that's one of the case studies we went. And the TV is like an altar, like very well decorated. That is his view to the world.
Wow.
That is his access to the world. He and his mother je kat situ. Mother dia kena pergi kerja.
Okay.
And he's alone with the dogs. They were talking about how he can be an artist dekat Pattaya, dekat that art street. But then I realized, I terasa. And then there was another one, we went to a kampong and visited people. And that what kept me going tau sebenarnya. That is a bigger world out there. And there are people who are much more needing accessibility, needing opportunities that, So I refer to that a lot. And also stories of deaf women who cannot go to court because they may have been sexually abused. That sort of thing. I dengar daripada cerita-cerita orang lain. So sometimes masa pergi rally Harapan OKU in July the 1st, 2018, I try to remind people, I reminded myself
that was
of that voices called the hidden voices.
Yeah. That was
And
an epic rally.
And we have access to the microphone, to the speaker, to the press, semua. So it's not your 15 minutes of fame. It's what you have to say to others.
Yeah.
Because you're given that platform. So whether it's RTM global program, the 15 minutes I can talk, whether it's on stage. I remembered the people that kept me going lah. Because, you've been hearing me like almost a normal life and stuff like that. But later when I have to face, when I get into my 50s, after I become head department, and when I became more successful in getting grants, even accumulated grants at one time worth $500,000 ringgit worth, doing a lot, that come to be ableism and issues of ableism in my workplace.
Can you describe that a little? What to you was ableism, and how did you feel that caused you any discrimination, if at all?
Yeah. I'll give you a few examples. But before anything else, it's like gaslighting.
Okay.
Because I was having faith in my coworkers that, when I had that grants and everything, but there was not much, I felt bad because the objectives of those grants were not being realized. But that is personal, one-to-one thing. Maybe I didn't manage it well or whatever. But I had extensive network of disability punya connections and working with DBKL and all. From United Nations, the training program. There's also another training program called Non-Handicapping Environment, which I especially the ice breaking punya module, I utilize in training for local authorities. So my build-up was, at the same time I was a lecturer in University Malaya, I was also helping with whatever the local authority or agencies, speaking engagement, helping with training modules. And then like our counterpart, Puan Chenggek B, Dalila, and others like Prof. Asia and all that, they also were from the United Nations training. And so what I'm trying to say is that we know that we had to tackle the property developers, the architect, and the building professionals, so that they are aware and also they have skills on how to make things accessible and understand universal design. So I had interdisciplinary punya mind already, but somehow there's a lot of blockages, a lot of hindrance and challenges as a lecturer. I know that when I resigned from head of the department, that there's going to be a problem for me to be getting into the administrative part. So I did the research part. Itu yang dapat grants tu. And I also joined UMCIC, the innovation punya center in UM. So there was a pathway for me to express my academic punya or my intellectual need. And then that really helped me to actually also assist the disability movement yang sedia ada, because there were issues of PWD Act 2008 being toothless and all. I even tried utilizing that act in my own discrimination at the situation at the University Malaya. At the end of the day, there is no recourse to justice. There's no mechanism for me to actually do complaints, and it is investigated in a neutral and, shall we say, it was always me, gaslighted balik. You're the one who is wrong. I complained pasal I was concerned tak ada lift dekat this block. Eventually, 5 years later, they built that lift. But, 5 years later, after I gone to call the higher education and ask, it's frustrating because there you go, they could point you out to be somebody who is a troublemaker.
Cari pasal.
The bosses or the university administrators look at me as a troublemaker. Sebenarnya, I just express and complain about the thing that I can't, dalam PWD Act, under employment, dia kata, okay, you kena ada the same opportunities as everybody else, but doesn't have a penalty to it. It's just an administrative act. And how the recourse to justice? Because it's still UM, they want to address it or not, the employer want to address it or not. And there was also another discrimination with regard to, I made a complaint about it, because it makes as if it's not about disability tau. But at the end of the day, that's when I understand about my disability identity. It was a complaint about some unfairness. I had to go to Hong Kong, and then they downgraded my student's grade. And then I complained that, it is to do with architecture punya course. But at the end of the day, you went to the legal unit and they just put it under the sweep and they delayed it. They don't have a feedback or verdict about whether vindicated or not, whether, I want to listen. I want to know whether I'm wrong. They don't have the feedback balik. I've tried also with the UBBL 34A with the complaints on my condo unit as well. The building commission as well. I mean, I can talk about that one if you want.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Silakan.
Okay, I live in a condominium unit, and in the Uniform Building Bylaw 34A says a disabled person may need to enter, use, and exit the building.
Yes.
So I live in a condominium unit where the common property are not accessible. So UBBL 34A kata after 3 years, people have to renovate and make it accessible. So I made a complaint to the local authority. The local authority actually take note and sent to the building commission. Until now, I think like 4 years already, they haven't get back to me. So in our UBBL 34A, you can actually go and complain after that to the state government. Yes. But the reply hasn't come back to me to act upon it to go to the state government. So, delaying and using the bureaucracy is ableism because you deny disabled persons access to justice, access to their rights, in so many ways, employment there, housing that I mentioned. So
Doc, how when you were in the UK, you mentioned that this Disability Discrimination Act was coming into force, or the ordinance in the UK at that point, right? Mm-hmm. And then when you came back here, what did you see? And how did you make comparisons? Did you feel as discriminated in the UK in comparison to Malaysia?
Well, in higher education, I was a PhD student. There was a disability liaison officer, or whatever they call them, equality, diversity
DEI
officer, yeah. And they were assisting me along all the negotiating the registration process and keeping in touch with whether I was having any issues on accessibility with regard to the facilitation or the learning part, with the supervisor. The supervisor was accommodating and let me stay in a room where they were also there and making it more accessible for me. And I saw that there are for example, higher education, the intake, the admissions, the registration, the learning part, accommodation, and I decided to stay outside. But they have accommodation for me, dekat inside if I want, and then going to classes and accessibility to learning and graduation. They are the 4 stages. Not only, in Malaysia we still have like discrimination on the intake. Okay, if I was a student trying to get into architecture school in Malaysia, I would not get architecture now. In UTM in 1980, I got into architecture. There were a few other people who were physically disabled, But now, some of the universities would say they have interviews. They have filters. How shall we say that? Requirements.
Saringan.
If you are tak ada tangan or arm, disabled in your arm or something, or colorblind, you cannot be an architect or something like that.
Tapi dulu tak ada benda-benda ni?
Tak ada ini. They're trying to go and make it funny sekarang. I don't know.
It's like a step backwards.
It is a step backward. Because I'm saying that I've already been an architect and doing it,
So what would you tell a young budding OKU person yang memang dia nak sangat, dia memang suka melukis, apakah harapan masa depan dia kalau dia nak menjadi arkitek pada hari ini?
You want me to go and end there, or shall I talk about what I encountered when I discussed with MRCB with regard to employment?
Yes.
Talk about both of it.
Malaysian Association of the Blind gave a list of people to be employed in Malaysian Resource Corporation Berhad, which is a construction company. But most of them have a degree in Malay literature, things that tak sesuai dengan
the industry.
The industry.
I see.
So why? So kalau you pergi Universiti Malaya, the social science, they have a lot of material for Braille and stuff, but not in law. I mean, I was
jurusan tertentu.
Architecture. Okay. It's not, or others, engineering or medicine.
Tak ada.
So that's discrimination already in terms of choices.
Access.
Yeah, this is a fact.
Yeah.
I mean, those people who are blind and wanted to join a construction company, and that is that disjointedness, kan?
It's a barrier, yeah?
a barrier, and how their skills can't be absorbed,
Can't be matched.
can't be matched.
And if you were to look at it as a person who has been an academician, how would you change it
You know,
for the OKUs in the future? Your wish list.
you know, I actually had a Talk Architecture podcast episode on blind person can be architects. Because I've met blind persons who are architects, but they were blind. They got blind like during architecture school. But the training can be changed to suit a blind person to be an architect. I mean, there's technology. You know, there's a lot of stuff going on that could assist somebody who is challenged to overcome. And you know, blind person has been a professor. The first senator was a blind person.
Yeah.
And many people, sociology, we have people who I bet who's doing sociology, but architecture, there's possibility because of arts and humanities and social science. You know, voice synthesizer, and the only thing yang dia punya challenge is learning scale. So what we did masa I was helping with the course, and there were blind participants. We designed a tactile scale ruler so that they can understand scale.
Fantastic.
So, but bila you use a ruler, you like this is the building 1:1 scale. How are you going to represent this building in a 1:100 scale? Kan?
Yes.
So that size tu dalam drawing tu adalah this size. How difficult is that for a blind person to understand? Sebab I was trained under the master trainer Venkatesh, okay, Balakrishnan, yeah. So he was able to tell whether I was sleeping in class. He was blind since the age of 12. Naziaty, were you sleeping? And I was like, yes, I was.
Oh, amazing.
And he would not be using a cane. He would just bump around. Maybe sengaja je dia nak bump orang to feel you and I'm like, oh, you're fat a bit. Something like that. But that's another story. But the point was, I was quite amazed because he's in the way he has patterns in his mind on how he could negotiate the space.
Exactly.
For sure, if this person, there are potential for blind people to be an architect. Why not? You know, I mean, here we are talking about Malaysian context. Maybe there are people out there who are you know, are able to do so.
If you don't mind, I'll just chip in a little bit.
Go on.
I'm so encouraged. Again, I'm so encouraged by your story. But there are pen scanners that help the visual impaired.
Pen
Scan?
scanners.
Yes, they can scan and read.
Yes.
Yes.
Just like we know about speech to text or text to speech. So there's a lot of education still. I think the gap is huge. And I just want to give a shout out. My greatest friend, the storyteller Kim Boon, the photographer, if you check his Facebook, is doing a photography course taught by a blind or fully visual impaired person using sensorial, tactile. So there is hope, but the gap, kan doctor, is large. But listening to you,
in terms of access to technology, sungguh pun teknologi tu wujud.
not just the technology, just the understanding. Kan?
The mindset,
the understanding
can be
that
overcome.
It can be overcome because you are a living example, and you cited your mentor guru, Balakrishnan. So it's this voices like this right now, I believe will give us motivation again to be voice as you are now, to say it's possible.
Yeah. Leadership, I feel that at this age, I need to get more younger people to be involved with universal design and accessibility. Hence, ZaSve Universal Design. I'm the CEO, but that's basically me employed. But the rest are associates who are actually working in different companies. And as and when there is a project, they would be a project coordinator, and we would do the project, accessibility audit for corporations. I do some speaking engagement, of course, and design appraisals for property developer that we're doing for a few years now. And you have one of my associates would help. The point is that there is this tier from for a architect, you can be involved in accessibility and universal design as an access auditor. If you also want to overcome or you want to learn about architecture, because then you could be very influential after being trained, because I have a set of modules that they can go through. And there are a few people who are doing those modules, training modules, who are non-architects. But of course, the architect, those who are architecture background, could be an access auditor that also design. And then you have a universal design consultant, and you can have a specialist. You can have a whole system of people being able to assess the built environment as it is, and actually get to assist with anyone who wants things to be accessible at all sectors. So when you talk about leadership, I decided that I'll put my disability activism into business, because you need to sustain it.
Yes.
In the situation in Malaysia now, while waiting for the PWD Act to be revised
And amended. Yes. We're still waiting.
I'm 62 already, and so I think that getting into this area to get awareness done, it was great. The other day with Standard Chartered, they had Purple Tuesday. They have about 40 people who are disabled in
Standard.
staff. Yeah. So I had it was interesting. I know that they still have a long way to go, but the private sector has a lot of can start the momentum going, because the leadership can come from anywhere.
Indeed.
Once you realize that, as a able-bodied person, realize that you are actually, if you embrace universal design and accessibility, you are actually building a future for themselves, because they would also be disabled later in life. So,
Indeed.
I mean, these are things that you can see me in Google.
Or Insta.
So Dr. Naziaty, tell us why you chose ZaSve.
ZaSve is a word from the Slovakian languages. That means za, one word. Zve means for all. So it was my website is designzasve, one word, .com. It means design for all. I wanted a sexy name, because disability should be sexy.
Yes, agree.
So ZaSve,
interesting.
Z.
So people who work with you, your associates and everybody who who are now sort of under the ZaSve umbrella, do you hire them also now because of their interest and belief in universal design and accessibility, that they would have to be like that to be doing work with you?
Yes, I don't know whether they're disabled persons, because disabled person banyak kategori kan. But many of them are ex-students. They were in courses that I had conducted before, or they were just merely a student when I was teaching in studios. And we're doing like a universal design village for persons with disabilities. I'm collaborating with Dr. Zaliha Omar. Hopefully we'll raise some funds to have that. And one of the main designer has been with me doing the bus stop, universal design bus stop, and earlier,
And is that in connection with the property developer or with this design?
No,
it's not apa.
individuals.
It's just like this project that you're on. Is it for
no.
a client? Is it your own thing that ZaSve people want to do?
Dr. Zaliha punya project. people are talking about retirement village, but
Yes.
we want best practice. We want a good model for Malaysia. There's lack of examples that we could find in Malaysia that could be, 100% or almost there, So this is like her project, and I was helping with the architecture team.
Love it.
Fantastic. So as a penerima anugerah tokoh pekerja negara in 2018 and even one in 2014, penerima anugerah akademik khas bagi sambutan kebangsaan Orang Kurang Upaya 2014. That's the kind of leadership you've shown. You've been in Majlis Kebangsaan OKU and BOKU. What would be your wish list now? The fact that you identified as a disabled, and if you did, what would be your wish list to say, how could Malaysia be better and more inclusive?
Yeah, when I discovered that I'm an autistic adult, and I have multiple disabilities, and also the poor eyesight on my right eye because of retinal detachment, and I had to have surgery. And being an older person, what is my wish list? For Malaysia, right? Coming up to our International Day of Disabled Persons, is that the them and us thing. We really need to work harder to bridge the gap. To actually, there's no them and us. A disabled person in one corner, and then non-disabled person in another corner, or the government in one corner, or whatever. We all have to go and work together, because 20% elderly person plus 16% disabled person, 36% of the population in 2040 needs special design, needs special services. And that we haven't really learned, we haven't really embraced this. Not only these attitudes, and the attitude is what is blocking, there's a direct connection between creating barriers for people to attitude, barriers in human beings. So we're not really helping ourselves, because a family is affected with these barriers. One of the family members could be the grandparent, or even pregnant lady or children. When they want to go out, they can't go together because to the special shop in a shop house or something, or they can't really venture and enjoy the Malaysian environment. So we are all affected some way or another. There are all these challenges that is unnecessary or not helping us at all. Why must we have a them and us confrontation, like I had in my work environment, because so there are all these things. And I think mental disability and intellectual disability, or those who face these challenges, there need to be more understanding of these things, and employment policies, and corporations can pick this up. I'm being inspired by those corporations that I've been with. And property developers should make multi-generational concept real, and, it's just a matter of understanding critical dimensions. So there's a little bit of skills, a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of empathy, understanding needed from everybody. Even myself, I need to understand other people's needs and concerns. And living with dementia is another thing. The senior policy that we need to rush and look at the aging population, because 70% of people above 60 years old are disabled. That's the US punya stats, which you can pakai lah.
Yeah. So we still have some bridges to to cross and some steps to climb. Yeah.
You know, I think I mentioned when we had a little chat just now, what is so interesting to me is, how you've come to this point, considering your childhood, education, experiences, background, that you considered yourself, or you were also told by your parents, by teachers, by your schools as, you're just a person like everybody else, kind of, ordinary in fact, tak extraordinary dan tak memerlukan apa pun, dan sepatutnya tak istimewa pun, tak sepatutnya
tak kurang upaya pun.
Tak kurang upaya pun, tak sepatutnya dibiarkan, dipinggirkan or anything like that. And then to also realize later that you had a point where you identified yourself more as privileged, in fact, when you started to even hear about issues affecting people with disabilities who were also then had to confront other challenges of like maybe their socioeconomic situation, poverty, of course, their environments, so many different things. So that actually gives me hope to think that you don't have to. I mean, yes, now it has become personal, right? And kita family pun, also our active choice of using the word kita is that we don't want to have divisions. We all belong together. If they say kami, there is a division. You are you and this is us. But but when we say us and we say kita, we're trying to include everybody, right? So I feel that even though there is that personal part, kita kat sini, kalau SK, Anit, myself, Didi and Desiree, who are not with us, we miss them, but we are parents, and then also going through things in life, and as you said now, suddenly realizing ada multi-disability, in fact. But for most of your life, or a huge portion of your life, it didn't require you to be from that, that is not personal for you per se. That was not the driving factor, actually,
No,
right?
I cannot ignore.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I cannot ignore the truth. What's out there, discrimination. What happened to me was subtle. Those things, it sort of led to like an episode of depression. And that made me realize more about how, as you age, issues with dementia and issues with being, gaslighted and stuff like that by a system, people being alone, it affects me. And I realize I identified as a disabled person when later at first it was just more of something that I could use for my work, right? And I think that we have to muster some sort of compassion for others.
Start there at least.
Yeah. Start there, and that was the Harapan OKU rally. And that's why we tore the PWD Act and in the bin and burned it. So defiant we were. But I kept on holding to that. And though I mengalir ke business because of also other reasons or my personal reasons, the activism part of me is still in me. And feeling like right now, when you remind me the discrimination that I had gone through, I think it's still there in wanting to put it right, the wrongs, that is out there in society with regard to discrimination for disabled persons.
And how important is it that the voice or voices come from somebody who identifies directly? Because it's said, right, the theme for this year, for example, is amplifying leadership of PWDs. Specifically, dah sebut tu. Dia tak kata just kepimpinan dari masyarakat, ahli masyarakat yang biasa-biasa. We're not just saying we need leadership in order for there to be a future that is truly inclusive, things like that. Now it's saying it's the leadership of persons with disabilities that need to be amplified. Itu yang kita nak perkasakan, itu yang kita nak tingkatkan lagi. How do you see that as important? Does that matter to you? What does that mean? How specifically this year's theme?
Yeah, recently I met Amirul, who actually made some changes happen at his place of employment, because I heard the story from his colleague, which is also somebody using a wheelchair, that it's just their nature that they did not complain, but Amirul did. And, putting himself on the line, I mean, I did that and I don't regret complaining before. I did mention about being discriminated, but and because you put your head on the line, or you put on the block or something, you complain. The decision is you complain and things change. People had to address it because you are dealing with society and you're not conscious of it. You just thought you need to do the right thing. So as a disabled person, you feel the discrimination and you actually complain and you actually try to get something done right. Your own thing. I mean, it may be like my own thing, complaining about the bank when you're not accessible. The other day, I resolved my own problem, but they are aware. That interaction, if we try to retreat, I almost swept under the carpet an issue, but it is painful. It is like a birth of something, It is a challenge that I think people say, oh, disabled person, they're special. That is a specialty. That is our specialty, that we had to face a challenge, like mothers had to give birth. Fathers don't. So they had that challenge, the extra challenge. Like disabled person had to confront these challenges in life, employment or whatever, education.
So they should speak up.
They should speak up. And speaking up is really, it's imperative. It's a natural thing to do to get things to happen, things to change. We can't change without speaking up.
Awesome.
And we want more people to listen, don't we?
Yes, to Kita family.
Terima kasih.
To all voices.
Thank you so much for
All
Kita
voices.
family for this lah.
Thank you, Dr. Naziaty. I think you've given us a lot of time today. You've honored us, and you have exemplified leadership of persons with disability who has come here and told us about multiple disabilities, which is itself an achievement. And with all that, having reached where you did.
Thank you.
Salute.
Thank you.
Salute.
Amazing.
Salute.
Thank
Terima kasih.
you, Rizky.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you again. Thank you for joining us. And any last wish on this special day of persons with disability?
My wish is that we are one family and we're all friends, and we got to have this conversation and dialogue about ableism and discrimination, and we need to start somewhere, even if we don't want to use the word discrimination. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any last words, Nori?
No, I'm good. I'm learning. No, it's good. Thank you.
Aka, SK?
I am inspired and grateful.
Okay. So to everybody watching, happy International Day of Persons with Disabilities, and look beyond you as to whether you can make a difference. We at Kita Family are on Spotify, YouTube, IG, Facebook. Follow us. We're also on TikTok. Follow us, like, share, leave us a comment, and hope you were inspired by Dr. Naziaty Mohd Yaacob the way we were, and we'll hear from you in our next episode. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.